Welcome to AtVenture DealFlow, the podcast where I talk to fundraising founders and the investors who back them. Today, I'm speaking with Nina van Schaick, co-founder and COO of Peripear, a medtech company redefining birth care by tackling one of the most under-discussed issues in women's health, perineal tearing during vaginal birth. Peripear's mission is very clear: to make birth injury-free, fear-free, and comfortable for every woman. So, Nina, welcome. Very good to
Thank
have you here
you.
today.
Great to be here. Thanks so much, Laurie. Yes, so great
Yeah,
to be here. We've come here through a mutual founder connection. Just talking about how supportive and amazing the founder ecosystem is for femtech, and how she nominated me. So that's great. I was
yeah.
very
Deal
very
with you.
grateful
Yeah,
to die.
it's
Yeah,
no. It's I'm happy that she connected us definitely. And you're on a big mission, an
yep,
important mission as well. I give you the
yep.
floor to tell your story for 1-2 minutes to really explain what you're doing and why you are doing that.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks so much. So, my name's Nina. I'm a midwife by background, and my professional frustration, I guess, has got me into my entrepreneurial chapter. So, it's not really acknowledged or known that about 90% of people who birth vaginally will experience some form of perineal trauma. And actually, it's even less known that we've had the evidence to support a solution for a mechanism that reduces these injuries by 50% for over a decade. So a lot of what was happening in women's health is we didn't have the data, we didn't have the clinical evidence to back these things up. But actually now we have had really good evidence for over a decade that we can reduce pain, tearing, and episiotomy, that's a surgical cut to the perineum, by up to 50%. But we're just not using it, because I looked around as a practicing midwife, knowing that I was doing my best to put the evidence into practice with every vaginal birth. And I knew the midwife next door wasn't doing this because of a logistical challenge, because I looked around for the tool I needed to put this into practice in a standardized and scalable way across all birth, and it didn't exist. Now, I am a farmer's granddaughter, and I decided in my madness to make this myself. I decided that the
Great.
tool didn't exist, and that was an equity issue for me. I thought, okay, so if that person's gets me as a midwife, they get that, or they get next door as a midwife and they don't, because it's a complete lottery in that system. So
Mhm.
actually that was a start. It's inequity that really fires me with this, and actually knowing that we have such a body of evidence for something that's quite simple. People say, oh, it's quite simple. Actually, it's really quite mind-boggling. And my co-founder Eviatar, who is a man, but he's had two
Yep.
daughters, and his wife's given birth twice, and had tearing both times, quite severe tearing. He could not believe, and I brought this to him as the concept for what I wanted to do. That was just over 2 years ago now. He was absolutely nonplussed that basically this didn't exist in the world. He said, "Well, surely we've solved this." And I said, "Well, no. The last big change we made for birth care really was the epidural, and that was invented in the 1950s. You know, we still use forceps that are not that dissimilar to what we're using in the 1700s.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
and
no innovation at all there,
not
actually.
really.
No.
And birth is, for many reasons, there's many layers to that, right? Partly because birth is amazing. Women's bodies are meant to do it. Birth is extraordinary. I have been privileged as a midwife to attend lots and lots and lots of births, and to see how women's bodies work perfectly. And I think the difference with this product that we're producing, the first product in the first iteration of the product, is that it's based on my respect for women's bodies and the knowledge that we just need to support the process for the body to work well.
Yeah.
So this isn't me saying I've got to change everything. This is me saying I see where this needs support. I see where the system needs to change. It's part of a workflow that already exists. We're not asking behaviour change. And that's a key point to bear in mind, I
Yeah.
think, with innovation in this area particularly. But yeah, this is how I got here. And I'm loving it. And frankly, my brain has been let off the leash, and I have 10 ideas a day about other things I would change and how to change them. But we are very focused on executing with this first iteration, this first product. We could have a huge impact. I think about 90% of those injuries, 90% of people suffer these injuries. That's 110 million vaginal births across the world every year. And actually, 45% of those injuries result in direct cost to healthcare systems. But also the real cost is not discussed. This is women and birthing people who live with a lifetime of pain,
Yeah.
incontinence, and the inability to birth more children safely, particularly those who suffer severe injuries. They lose their careers, they lose their economic potential, that, their mental health impact is huge. So psychological and physiological effect, and economic and huge societal effect, I think, actually, of taking women out of the workforce. So this is all, it's all wound up in the same thing. So I'm privileged to be able to do what I'm doing, which is hopefully building something that is going to impact in that space hugely. And nothing
Yeah.
exists at the moment. There's no commercial solution for this at the moment.
So yeah, that's a lot of questions I had answered in one go, actually. So,
Oh,
yeah, no, I think very well done. A very big problem, like you say. So I didn't know that it's 90% of the women. I mean, that's huge. It's really crazy. And also, like you said, but actually you can do something about it. So yeah, you just have to be lucky that you get the right support or not. It's just like a lottery, indeed, to see where you end up. And yeah, it's also indeed the pain afterwards and the fear afterwards. I think
yeah.
that you cannot maybe even measure, but there is a bigger impact than just the healthcare cost. So
Well, yeah. And why would
yeah,
you ask? Why would you
yeah,
ask? This is the point. If we haven't had this data until in the last 10 years, we've actually started asking women about
yeah,
their
yeah,
experience of not only tearing, 91% of people, this is a study from 2019, 91% of people are saying this, they're having pain during sex a year after sustaining a perineal injury.
unbelievable.
I'm
Yeah,
not okay with this. I'm not okay with the
no,
normalization of pain for women. It's why we're in the state we're in, frankly.
yeah,
And we're just saying, oh, at least you have a healthy baby, but you'll never be
yeah.
able to cough or laugh again.
No, it's great you make this topic also well at least open and people can talk about it, because I think that's already something that is very important.
Yeah,
So well done for that. I think
thank you. Yeah,
really well done.
we've just brought
Yeah,
out our white paper actually on this topic about basically, recovering these as taboo subjects and actually the secrecy that goes on between women, and saying we can't tell you all this because, then you wouldn't have babies. Well, that's just totally patronizing for women. We're pretty
yeah,
tough, really.
yeah,
Actually, if we knew and we prepared and we had the knowledge and the power to do this,
yeah.
then I think the outcomes would be different.
Definitely, it's all about prevention in the end, right?
Yeah.
And do you also see if you talk to these women that they're afraid to get a second child, or is
Yeah.
there? I mean, do they get a second child even?
Yeah, exactly. I think
Yeah,
there's a lot.
it's
Well, there's several aspects to that, right? There's
yeah,
people who absolutely fundamentally would not give birth again,
yeah,
or even these young women in their early part of their lives who are saying there's no way I'm having a vaginal birth. There's absolutely no way. If that's a
yeah.
danger, if I'm going to tear, there's no way I'm doing it.
No,
And
so they go
that
for C-section straight
they
away.
go
They
for
want to go for
C-sections,
C-section. Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah,
which have their own
yeah,
burden of on themselves, on their wellness, and also on the baby, and also on the microbiome, and also on
yeah,
the system,
yeah,
frankly, because we're seeing cesarean rates shooting up around the world, and part of that is fear. And
yeah,
it is there's a whole systemic problem, but I think if we can move into that one piece of prevention, which is very actively what we're doing at Peripear, then we
yeah,
can hopefully shift that feeling of fear a little bit. If you say, good, I've had obstetricians say to me, well, if I had something to offer these women,
yeah,
and say, well, I will use this will the evidence shows this reduces the chances of these things happening that you're worried about by this much.
yeah.
I know
Then
that's
at least you
that's
take away a bit of the fear. Yeah. So it's great you have a male co-founder. So
yes.
so it's not only women here.
No,
I think that's really great. And
he's an ally.
how did you meet him then, or how did you?
So yeah, Evie and I, so he's called Eviatar, and
Uh-huh.
he calls himself a recovering academic, which I think is quite funny. He's a scientist. He trained in Cambridge and MIT, and
Yeah.
he came to so he was on his road to becoming a group leader and staying in academia, and I think he had a big pivot and realized that actually it wasn't for him, and that he wanted to come out and have more agency and start building health tech startups. And that's what he's done for the last 10 years.
Okay.
I happen to know him because we live in the same lovely place in North Oxford,
Ah.
and we have
So you
children of the
met him on
same
the
age, on
yeah,
literally on the
yeah.
school run, right?
Yeah, really.
Um,
That's how
and
the best
um,
connections. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we're both a bit odd I guess we don't really do small talk. We get straight in there with the big stuff, and we like swimming
Yeah.
in cold water. So we started
Oh,
swimming in the river together about 10 years ago, and in the Thames there before it goes through London, just to make that clear, because
yeah.
I wouldn't swim in it afterwards. But yeah, so we go and
Yeah.
get into the cold water and we talk about all these things. And then because we don't do small talk, we ended up talking about this issue. And I brought this issue to him, and he was about to have a sabbatical. He booked himself a sort of a year of thinking time and space to decide what his next move was, what the next company was going to be, and what he wanted to build. And about a week after he'd managed to do this, find this space for himself, I came to him and said, hey, there's this thing I want to do, because look at this evidence base and look at the
This is my
frustration and
business
look at
case. Yeah.
yeah, this is my
Yeah.
business case. And he feels like he'd already done his due diligence on me.
Yeah.
And I'm very flattered to say that he said I'm one of these people that he looked at and said, I want to do something with her.
Yeah. Cool.
Because we both have this like energy and
Yeah.
fight
This
and
drive to
this
make this
drive.
happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just come out of I trained and worked in the NHS, both as a community midwife and a hospital midwife, so doing home births and hospital births. And I went into private practice to do home births. And then I basically was looking for a kind of, there was a change. I could feel there's a change in what I wanted to do. And this idea just would not go away, which I think are the
Yeah.
best ideas. They just won't leave you alone.
Yeah. It's up in the night and you're always
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
but
yeah.
if I do this
Literally
and then,
the
oh, yeah,
first
yeah,
thing you
yeah.
think
Yeah.
about when you're awake and you're dreaming about
Yeah.
this thing. So yeah, it wouldn't leave me alone, and I wouldn't leave Evie alone. And he eventually, so not eventually, actually, he did a good bit of thinking about it, and came in, and we haven't really stopped since. It's been a 2-year sprint. But
Great.
we have an amazing creative partnership. We work really well together. I think we've recently been to Houston to the Texas Medical Center
Yeah.
Accelerator,
Yeah.
and someone described us as being two halves of the same brain. They're like, you guys are like really, like your skills are
A
really
great fit for each other. Yeah.
yeah, great
Yeah.
fit. Yeah. But we
Yeah.
also have so much fun. Like the creative stuff we do is so much fun. But give us a whiteboard and
Yeah.
a bit of time, and we have a lot of fun when we're taking
Yeah, that's
this.
really cool. I mean, it's the best way I think to meet your co-founder in a way, so that you really already have a bond together, and then you see each other also for what you can be. So I think that's really good.
And I've learned a lot from him, because he has built companies before.
Yeah,
He's really done that piece, and he's got amazing skills, and his brain is incredible. So
and the
I'm
network probably as well
oh
then
yeah, the
to do
network.
that,
Yeah.
because indeed for you this step from becoming midwife to start your own company, it's
Yeah.
quite a big step, right? I
It's
think
wild.
yeah, right. It's a totally different world you step into. So it's great that you're not in that alone, first of all, and then that you're in that with someone that actually knows that world. So I think
Yeah.
that really helps a lot. I definitely see that. And so it's the two of you, but I saw you also have a strong advisory board,
Yeah.
a team of advisors. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah. So we're the core team,
Yeah,
and we have taken on a lot of fractional advisors. So taking on being lean, being really
yeah,
determined to make the most of every penny.
yeah.
And so we were very fortunate to have a world thought leader, a KOL, come on in the first couple of months for our idea. He's called Professor Sultan, and
Uh-huh.
he was one of the senior authors of the Awasi Care Bundles. But this was a global guideline. He's a
Yeah,
urogynecologist, works in the UK in the NHS. He's a lovely, lovely human being. And his wife has just stepped down as president of our Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. And he has spent the last, he's devoted his career to preventing the more severe third and fourth degree tears. So he wrote helped write the global guidelines in 2018. And they didn't include the use of warm compresses in that guideline because there wasn't enough standardization. They couldn't guarantee it would be done in the same way. They couldn't guarantee the
yeah,
safety, because if people are microwaving saline bags and shoving them on people's perineums, then you're going to get injuries, and there have been injuries. So they couldn't include it. There was lots of debate, couldn't include it. So we came to him and said, we want to build this thing. And he came on board as an advisor very early. So we also have an amazing fractional CFO who was someone I met through my network, now making network in the kind of angel investing space, and also through the kind of female founders space
yeah.
in the UK. Her name is Sapna, and she came on to do some fractional CFO stuff for us. And then she saw under the hood and she actually came on as an angel, which is really, really
Yeah.
validating for us. We were
Yeah.
so pleased. I know
Yeah.
that's not an unusual story, but I felt really good about it because
No, of
she's
course. It feels like a tick that you're doing
yeah,
something right, right? Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And then and some consultants about our kind of US go-to-market strategy. We have some amazing marketing consultants. We have some amazing, we've amazing design and engineers who are working for us in a fractional way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really built the team out of the kind of a web. So
Yeah.
we
So
are
you think
taking
of what you need and then you put the
yes,
right people in the right
yes,
places to do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
taking on
because you
those
are the COO, right? And
yeah,
then yeah,
and Evie
all
is the
right.
CEO. I think that the way we're building it is very organic and it's very it's I think people rush into they're like, oh, we need a marketing person or
Mm,
we need someone full time on the finance or and actually you don't. And that's my learning as well. I mean, I call
yeah.
this my lived MBA from Evie and all our advisors. And also we've had a lot of input from our angels and
So you're doing your funding round at the moment.
yeah.
Do you foresee to hire now some permanent roles, or how does that look like in terms of your use of funding?
Yeah, I think we are looking for and refining down a head of product.
Yeah.
It's we've got several people going to come on as consultants, and we're going to mold that into because I think actually what we're looking for is really very wide. That's a huge role. And I think we learn a lot from founders who are a couple of years ahead of us and companies who are a few years ahead of us. And they've been incredibly generous. A lot of our, we've met on different cohorts for different accelerators and they've been a couple of years ahead. So we've learned a lot from them and how they have distributed those roles and when they've taken those roles
Yeah.
in-house. For
Yeah.
example, your head of product and also your regulatory and compliance pieces, this is all, and the go-to-market thing, the head of commercial when that comes. So this is all looking at like the next year really is the head of product and then also our head of commercial.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
sales part.
About half of the raise is going to be early stage manufacturing, getting to that point where we're actually ready to get into the market in the US. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's
And
yeah.
do you think it will be difficult to find that kind of profile as a head of product, head of I have no idea how the market is now in the UK to find these kind of people.
Well, we've just found an incredible through the other lovely founders who
Yeah.
help us. They've just yeah, so we have got a really, really strong person who we're hoping to bring, hoping that will be the, you know, I'm not going to say too much, but what I'm hoping is that we get to
Is that they will? Yeah. Yeah.
tempt them to come in house full time.
Yeah.
But you never know as well because people's lives have stuff happens and
Of
priorities
course.
change, right?
Yeah.
There's no guarantees, but we can dream. I
Yeah,
think
so
you're
you have
right.
some ideas
Yeah,
already on how that would look
yeah,
like.
yeah.
It's not that you are. Yeah, yeah, makes
And we
sense.
know who we want for the head of commercial. We have someone absolutely in our sights. We're just wooing them. Does that make sense in
Okay.
Dutch? We're
Yeah.
wooing them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand that. I understand that. Yeah. Okay. Clear. That sounds like a plan. I think you really worked it out quite well in terms of mapping out who you need now, who you would need in the
Mm.
next phase, and going forward, and what kind of profile would fit that best. So well done.
We're very
Yeah.
concentrated. We're very concentrated and very focused. We have, even from the beginning, we've had quarterly reviews, we've had quarterly goals, we've really pushed forward. We've had board meetings, we've really behaved as a professional company from the start. And I
Yeah.
think
Well
that's
done.
a huge debt to Evie. But also that just keeps us focused. It's allowed us to move incredibly
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, and also that shows to your potential employees, or
Mm.
someone that comes on board that you are really, taking this in a
Yeah.
professional way, and that also really shows to them, okay, maybe this is a company I would like to work for full
Yeah.
time. So yeah, um, let's go back to the problem, right? So you
Yes.
say 90% of women experience. That's 90% globally, or
Yeah.
how? So really, okay, that's amazing. Well, amazing. It's not amazing, but it's
It's not
shocking.
amazing. Shocking.
It's not. Yeah,
It's a
it's
big
shocking is
number.
the right word. And of course, there's different degrees, right? In
Yes.
in
Yeah.
terms
Yeah.
of tearing.
Yeah.
Do you also have data on that? So how
Yep.
many? So how many are really severely
Yeah.
teared, or I don't know how you would do these graduations, or
Yeah. So
yeah,
the third and fourth degree test, so the first, the different degrees,
yeah,
if you're happy for me to clarify,
yeah.
as no one's trying to eat their lunch whilst listening to this,
No,
the first
please.
degree is just the skin. just
Yeah.
the skin, and second degree would be into the muscle of
Yeah.
the perineum and the perineal body, and that's that's still like a normal tear, but that can still have a huge impact on lots
Yeah.
of things, especially if it gets infected. You have a readmission, and it has a huge impact on sexual function, and also the repair of a normal second degree tear, which in most contexts is done by a midwife in the room under local anesthetic, which is really not very effective, and I think in some cases more traumatizing than the injury itself. For a lot of women, they say, "I'd happily give birth again, but I don't want to get stitched again."
Yeah.
No, no. And
Okay.
I've experienced that myself twice.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, just crossing
Yeah.
legs.
So this is only the second. Are there
This
more?
is only a second degree tear.
There's more
So
degrees.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Third degree tear involves some part of the anal sphincter. And then fourth degree tear involves the entire anal sphincter.
Uh,
Yeah, straight through. So for those people who suffered those injuries, 40% of people who will suffer those degrees of injuries will be incontinent as a
wow.
result, fecal incontinent. Yeah, yeah,
And how
and
in
that's
terms of
despite having repair.
yeah. And then in terms of numbers, let's say, so you say 90% of the women. So that's you mentioned the
Sorry,
number.
so the third and fourth degree tear rate is actually going up,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
How come? Well, do you know how that's
Well,
bigger kids or
no, well, I mean, that's what everyone says, but I don't believe
yeah.
that. I've seen some very large people come out, some very small people with very little damage.
Okay.
I think it's to do with the amount of instrumental births we're doing. That's a big factor in third and fourth degree tears. But also, it is also, you could argue, and I look at my kind of midwifery brain here, my clinical brain here, is you could look at the fact that we started the Oasis Care Bundle in 2018. We rolled it out over the next couple of years, 18 months. And actually, is it that we're getting better at diagnosing those injuries? And you'd
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
so, because there are
Yeah.
still undiagnosed. I mean, I've still
Yeah,
looked
so
after
maybe
women.
it's data actually.
Maybe it's data, maybe
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
numbers as opposed to, but they're
Yeah.
saying between the global average 6 to 11%. Still,
Okay.
that's a lot. That's
It's
a
a lot.
lot of women every year. And this is women in hospitals around Europe and the UK and around the world. So in the European context, or I suppose in the the HMIC context, this is women who will probably be diagnosed adequately, but I've still looked after women in community. I've made referrals back into the hospital, and because women have asked me, is it normal for me not to be able to hold on to my to my stools and to be fecal
Wow.
incontinent after having a baby? This is just normal, right? I'm like, no, this is not normal. You've probably got a missed anal sphincter injury or obstetric anal sphincter injury. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and
The shock.
there's
This is really shocking to me,
it's
really. I didn't know these numbers. No, I mean it sounds like I mean not in developed countries, right? I wouldn't
yeah.
imagine these numbers in developed countries basically.
But then you're looking at a whole proportion of women in LMIC
Yeah.
who are never going to be diagnosed or treated for that.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
not to
and I
mention,
mean, and it should be a happy thing, right? I mean,
yeah,
you just have a newborn, and
yeah,
everyone is cheering, but yeah, the reality is then that for a lot of women this is actually not the case, and it's really a traumatic experience. Then,
yeah. And we know that, 1 in 4 women are experiencing quite severe levels of birth trauma in the whatever you want to call it, the developed world or high resource settings.
hmm
Um, and this is contributing to that, definitely. I think the
and
powerlessness.
and do you see differences? I mean, you say because okay, these numbers are equal across the globe, or do you see some countries that are actually performing much better than other countries, or much worse than other countries in terms of third and
There are
fourth
regional, yeah,
degrees?
there are regional variations, but of course you have to take into account how good data collection is in
Yeah,
those
that
areas.
remains a
Yeah,
difficult part, of course. Yeah,
absolutely, and it's
yeah,
it's really uneven differentiate. Different that data collection is really uneven,
yeah,
depending on where you are. But I think the global average between 6 and 11%. Obviously, even by state in the US, for example, there's differences. There are some doing better than others.
yeah.
I know that there's a larger number of these injuries in, for example, Singapore, which is a geography we're looking at. And it is linked in some cases to ethnicity,
Mm.
or ethnic heritage.
And it goes back to data, indeed, like you said. Okay, is it really reliable, and are we measuring the same thing?
Yeah,
And because are people really? I mean, the second and the third, is it really clear to see which degree is which degree? Yes. I
So
mean,
it depends
there's
on the
also
skill of,
diagnosis
yeah,
that that
exactly,
that
the
someone
skill of
needs
the
to make.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And
yeah.
the cost implications and the fact that you'd have to, in a midwife-led sitting, you'd have to transfer because obstetric anal sphincter injuries that involve any, at the anal sphincter, any of the capsule, would need to be repaired by an obstetrician in theatre. So there's a transfer aspect to that. But it's also, you need to know what you're looking at.
Mm,
Or you need to have the support and the professionalism to say, I don't know what I'm looking at.
yeah.
I
And
need a
I'm
second or a
getting an
third
expert,
opinion.
or yeah, yeah. I need a
Exactly.
second opinion. Yeah,
And
yeah.
to be able to do that, and particularly in the NHS at the moment, you'd be lucky if there's another person
Available even.
to
Yeah,
check.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe that woman who I was in the community with, and it's a couple of years ago now, but I sent her back in. I remember her really clearly because it was her first baby. She was absolutely distraught that she was fecal incontinent. She was really struggling to feed this baby. She was struggling with all this stuff that
Yeah,
mothers struggle with in
yeah,
transition to motherhood and not being supported adequately. But also she was fecal incontinent, which just was horrifying to her. And
yeah. I
and
mean,
obviously,
how old was she? 30 something,
yeah,
just
no, no,
very young. Yeah.
yeah, young.
Ugh.
So yeah, so I think it's possibly, diagnosis obviously is a huge part of it. And Abdul, Professor Sultan would say that there's a lot more of that where there is less knowledge and less training.
I think I can imagine, because that's very, very important component also of
Yep.
your proposition, right? Because
Yes.
even when you have your product,
Yep.
you still need to have the right training to
Yes.
use it. So I
Yeah.
think that's really a prerequisite, basically. So
Yes.
you need to to do that together with your product. So
Yes.
how are you going to do that then?
Really crucially, yeah, absolutely good. Really good point to pick up on. I feel very passionate about this, and we've had so much feedback from obstetricians actually and midwives who said, yes, what we need, because especially those people who are teaching obstetrics, for example, they're not the ones in the rooms anymore. They're not the ones doing the birth. So they're saying, yes, please give me something to teach my residents.
Yeah.
This is a US obstetrician, and I've heard this from other places as well. But yes, give me something that I can use to train my residents about the evidence behind this and how to do this, and also this, bring them into this encapsulation of this whole package that means that they are training
Yeah.
in that way, and realizing the impact, not realizing the impact of these injuries for a start.
Mhm.
I think it's really important, but also having tools to reduce damage.
Yeah.
It's really important. So this is going to be an online CPD platform for clinicians, which is going
Okay.
to bring them in and have points that they can use towards their professional revalidation.
Yeah.
And this will be part of our rollout in the
Yeah.
B2B market in the US to start with.
And then, so if you talk about your product, so how, explain it to me as someone, I'm a woman, but
Yeah,
at least
you
that's
have a
one
pair.
thing, and I
You
have three
have,
children.
yeah.
But explain a little bit on how does it work? What is it? How does it work? And is it difficult to use
No,
for a midwife if
no.
she no? Okay, so tell me. Yeah,
It's been designed with the stakeholders at the center. Okay,
yeah,
so fundamentally, the person who's giving birth, brilliant. It's for them.
yeah.
But it's also to do with the clinical workflows of those people who are caring for them. What I want is to take away logistical challenges to implementing gold standard practice at every birth. So it's adhesive. So it gets attached to the perineum. It's very discreet. It's non-invasive. It's only external, and it gets attached to the perineum after a diagnosis of fully dilated. So the cervix is fully dilated or
So
complete.
you
Because
do
there's
that with everyone.
yeah.
It's like, so every, okay, so there's not like, okay, you have a higher risk of, so you need to do it. All women that are going and are fully ready for it, they need to use it, basically.
Well, I mean, it would be lovely if that was the case. It depends
Yeah.
on who is paying for it. I think that's
No, exactly.
ultimately
But
it,
I mean,
right?
in
So yeah,
principle,
yeah. In principle, it's
you would
suitable
want
for
everyone
everyone.
to do it. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I mean, if they had particularly bad scarring, we don't know. We don't have those results yet. But we would
Oh,
like to think in the future, when we're getting our larger clinical pilots, particularly women who've suffered from female genital mutilation, women who've had previous really bad tearing, it might be a tool to use to increase confidence and help with that tissue as well. So, but the fundamental thing is women, primarily in our clinical pilots, it would be women having their first baby,
yeah,
because they are ultimately at more risk. And then
yeah,
there might be other factors that you could put on top of that, and saying,
yeah,
okay, these increased risk factors, maternal age, for example,
yeah,
or women who are diabetic, for example, so their tissues are
yeah,
slightly more friable depending on the control of the diabetes. So
yeah.
yes, we have a criteria, but it is for everybody.
Okay.
So this would be used obviously with education and permission
Yeah,
around the
yeah,
time of fully dilated or spontaneous. I mean, you don't have to you don't have to digitally examine someone to tell me if they're fully dilated.
yeah,
That's
yeah. No,
it's
exactly.
it's a
Yeah,
midwifery skill.
yeah.
Or if they're spontaneously pushing, then you put it on, and it stays on from that point until the baby is born.
Okay.
So it's very flexible, and it provides standardized moist heat in the first instance. That's what it does, and some support. And the caregiver can give all of the right support and help the baby be born as they would within their clinical guidelines, with it
Okay.
in place. It's really important. So it stays there, and particularly stays there until after baby's born, which is something.
So it's and then it's linked to electricity then, or how?
No, it's all
No.
it's all incorporated.
Okay,
So
so it's one
it's wireless.
round thing basically that you place on it.
It's like,
I'm just
it's like this.
yeah, okay, because I want to, we don't see a visual now. So it's a V shape.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's an ergonomically shaped. Should we say that?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then okay. And you just put it on there. There's no because what I'm thinking also is some women like to give birth standing,
Yes.
sitting, different
Exactly.
postures. So
And
that's
they should.
possible with this. Yeah.
Yes. And as a
Yeah.
woman who's given birth herself
Yeah.
twice standing up,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, because I'm very tall, and I think the shape
Yeah.
of my hips just means that was the way I get my babies
Yeah.
out.
For me, it was
Uh,
also moving around a lot,
yeah.
and it's very
Yeah.
frustrating if you cannot do that. So it's good
Exactly.
that you are.
And maternal position is actually implicated in quite a lot of the evidence to do with the more severe tears and not being able to intuitively choose your position. Your body wants to protect you. So, I mean, women are amazing. They're
Yeah.
incredible. So, yeah, in any position,
Yeah.
not in the water. That's
No.
the one
Okay.
thing, because we're
Yeah.
basically simulating that water environment, right, for
Yeah.
your perineum. So we know the advantage of being in the birth pool. And actually, the people who get to do that, it's a smaller percentage than I would like, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one contraindication at the moment, because obviously it's integral and it has power. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so indeed, so that's the only thing that you cannot do with
yeah,
it,
but you can go in
and
the
then
shower with it. I mean, it's it's waterproof,
even that.
obviously.
Okay,
That
all
area
right.
is very damp
Yeah,
when
yeah,
everything is happening, right? So
yeah,
that's part of the challenge to creating a device that is adhesive and functional and supportive in that area. People have said to me, "Oh, it's very simple. It's basically." I'm like, it's not. It's a
no,
very dynamic area
yeah,
that changes. That expands and distends by a huge percentage at the moment of birth.
and okay, so I'm a hospital. I'm gonna buy these
Mhm.
things from you. So how does your business model work? Maybe explain me a bit
Yeah, yeah,
about your business
absolutely.
model.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, our business model would be B2B.
yeah,
So we have an initial on our go-to-market plan. We've done lots and lots of work on the US go-to-market. We have done a very small initial targeted B2B to C, so through clinicians, through our clinical champions in the first instance. And we're entering the US under a very, very simple claim on the 510K exemption for comfort in the first instance. And then we're gathering our clinical data for effectiveness on second degree tears. And then we increase our 510K. And then we get the clinical data,
yeah,
obviously much wider on third
yeah,
and fourth degree tears, a lot more data needed.
yeah.
And then we increase to effectiveness for third and fourth degree tears. And then we are. And then we take over the world by
Yeah.
adding.
And in terms
This
of
is the first
timelines,
iteration.
because so yeah,
Yeah.
so if you say this, so what are the timelines for that?
Yep. So D2C, by we're saying starting in sort of September, October 2026. This is within the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah,
We're in that market. In those small targeted pilots, and possibly in that early revenue in the end of that year.
yeah,
And then we're moving into our B2B. So that's at the moment we're forging those connections. We're with the TMC accelerator in Houston. We've also got some really good connections in Boston. In fact, I'm flying out to Boston next week to talk to several people, and also New York as well. So we're
Okay.
making really good inroads in that. We're supported by some amazing consultants. We're supported by some amazing resources and talent in TMC as well. Yeah, we essentially are running our go-to-market alongside our regulatory strategy so that we get to revenue as soon as possible.
Yeah. And you can
And
test some things and
yes,
get more data in. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And so how would it work then? So I'm, let's say, pregnant
Yep.
in in one of those areas, one of
Yep.
this pilot areas, and I can be part of this pilot in a
Yep.
way, and I can order this myself. So
Yes. So
who's paying for this?
your
Yeah.
clinician would recommend. This is not an expensive product. It's
No.
around
Okay.
the $200 mark. So
Okay.
your obstetrician, your OBGYN would recommend this to you, would refer this to you, and you would buy this, and they would be trained to use it.
Yeah.
So there would be an acceptance, because obviously the payer and the user are different people in this context, which is why we're
Yeah.
not going down the D2C route for a longer term strategy.
No.
And then we start talking to those hospitals, convert them into contracts, and then we start talking to the distributors who we've already
Yeah.
having conversations with about moving into those large distribution, and we will have the ability to scale at that point.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think it's a interesting way to enter the market indeed, to get as much data as possible. And then so that's all located in the US then, these
It's all
areas.
in the US. We
Okay.
have Singapore as our secondary
Yeah.
market, because we've been lucky enough to get onto the Global Business Innovation Program, the GBEP, which is similar to the TMC Accelerator in Singapore as well. And in fact, my
Okay.
co-founder is
Well
off to
done.
Singapore the week after I come back from Boston. He's going to do that market visit, and we've already got a
Yeah.
lot of connections there. Professor Sultan has a lot of connections there.
Yeah,
He's
that
done lots
helps a
of
lot, I can
yeah.
imagine. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
And
and
your own
Singapore,
market, the
yeah.
UK, you are not, I mean,
Oh,
why?
don't
No, I don't know.
So we are. Look, I'm an NHS trained midwife. I want this to be available in hospital where I trained. But the fact is that we, as a medtech startup, we can't commercialize purely on the basis that the NHS is going to be our first customer. It takes a year to get a contract
Yeah,
signed
takes
in
too
that
long.
environment.
Yeah.
And it's fine. We want to come there. We will be available to the NHS. And we're applying for lots of grants this autumn,
Yeah.
which would give us UK trials. And we're already, I mean, we have about 4 UK trusts who want to do pilots for us. They're there
Yeah.
going, when can we start? And we're saying, when we have a grant,
Yeah.
because this is the way
We
it
want
works.
to, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And we've got great connections into NICE. We've did the Accelerating Femtech program. We won their prize of most potential revolutionary for women's health in the UK award.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And we will be there. It's just
Yeah.
it's going to take a bit of time. It's
Because
in the
it's a
plan.
shame, like that also
Yeah.
there. That I mean, for all the women out there, you want to be as
Yeah.
fast as possible, basically,
Yeah.
to help them
Absolutely. You want to
and
be
not,
as quick
yeah,
as possible. Yeah.
yeah, right. I think that's what you want, and then
Mhm.
yeah. But I understand also you have to focus also and select these markets, learn from that, and then at the same time, looking for the UK market and
Yeah.
other markets. Specific questions on the Netherlands, because in the Netherlands there's a lot of home births.
Yes, lots of midwife power in the Netherlands. We look at it as like
Yeah.
the golden land of midwifery.
Yeah, so how would that work? It doesn't. It's
Mm.
even a better model for you,
Mhm.
or
Absolutely. Europe is definitely of interest. There's a
yeah,
slightly different regulatory strategy that comes with the European kind of regulatory office, and making those inroads will be easier once we have the FDA clearance, and then coming back to the European context, I think is definitely important for us.
yeah,
And pro birth nation such as the Netherlands, then absolutely definitely on our radar. And we've always
yeah,
speak to a friend of mine is a midwife just outside of Amsterdam, and she yeah, I mean, this would be great, but it's
yeah.
again, it's one of those decisions that you have to make as a founder, is saying, okay, where's the first? And also
Of
America, I mean,
course,
the US is huge, so we have our 5 key states, and we're focusing on those, and then
yeah.
we'll expansion when it
Step by step.
comes.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Post seed raise is the
yeah,
expansion, right? So we're raising pre-seed at the moment, and that is for, that takes us all the way to that initial commercialization, which is awesome. And then we'll work on expansion once we get the seed raise, on the
yeah.
basis of having a lot of clinical data then.
So you really tick all the milestones there,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then in terms of your product sales, so I mean, is there IP on it, or
Yep,
how? Yeah, so
definitely.
you have IP on it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
we
all
do.
registered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just checking that,
Yes. No, no,
ticking
no.
the box. Yeah.
Ticking the box. Yeah,
Because
absolutely. It's very.
I mean, there's no competition. You say there's no competition nobody working on this. I mean, there is of course the normal way of doing it. That's basically your
Mhm.
competitor, anyways.
Yeah.
But is there anything else or anyone
But is
else
it
working on this?
actually happening is my question always to those people
Yeah,
who say, oh, but we have, I'm saying, look, we can put a robot explorer on Mars, but we're still saying to midwives in 2025, oh, knock yourself out. There's a tap, isn't there? Like,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
But so there's several people who are working on the problem, but no one who is using the same mechanism as us.
yeah.
So Oasis Care in Denmark, for example, are working on a mechanical version. They're working on mimicking the clinician's grip. And I think actually when you restrict the tissue at the base, when you restrict the perineal tissue, what you'll get, and I know this because I'm a midwife, is that you push all the force upwards and you'll get more urethral and clitoral tears, which
Mm,
nobody wants, frankly. And also Donny Life in Israel are also working on the basis of mechanical restriction. So, and there's also Perry Peach
yeah.
in Boston. She's working on a heat mechanism, but it's much less sophisticated than us. So
Okay.
we're watching closely, and it's always good to see some activity in this
Yeah, of
space, right?
course.
Because if
That
there's
there's a
no one
market
across
at
the
least. No,
world
no, no.
doing
Then what are
anything,
you doing? Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. No,
exactly.
but it's so Perry Pitch is based in Boston, and you are actually gonna do a pilot then in Boston. You said
Yeah,
it right?
we're coming
Yeah.
for
So
them.
it's well done. Yeah. So I just want to understand your traction so
Sure.
far, and really your ambition and vision
Yep.
in terms of revenues,
Yes.
where you're going towards to. Because okay, you say it's 200 euros per
Yep.
device, so that's in a way a no-brainer versus all the trauma
Yep.
and actually the healthcare costs that stand next on the other side of
Yep.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you expect to achieve in the next years in terms of revenues and
So
numbers?
we have a projected revenue of over 250 million by 2031.
Yeah,
This is achievable with just those key markets. And in fact, we can become a unicorn with less than 1% of the available market. It's because there are so many births and this is such a
yeah,
recurrent problem. And it's a pain point, particularly with litigation increasing in all countries, actually. So that's our predicted revenue. And I would say we were very, very conservative. We could tell you bigger numbers than that, but we're not going to because that's
no,
actually most startup figures are sort of finger in the wind, aren't they? But
yeah.
actually,
This
we've
is really
really gone
based upon
granular.
yeah.
We've really
Okay,
gone granular from when we can get revenue. So there's
impressive. Yeah,
thanks.
impressive. Okay, so
Um, I
that
want to
that
think about the amount of lives we're going to change with that.
yeah, because I
I am
think
here for the money.
that's yeah
I'm here for the
that
vision,
yeah
but
that
it's for me, it's the impact
yeah
that's what I want. But
yeah
also and then we're going to and we're going to use this as a platform, and then we're going to go into making birth completely wireless and hands-free. So I
okay.
want
Next
to
step.
center this is the next step. This is the
Yeah.
next, and I'm happy to come and talk for another hour
Yeah,
about
yeah,
this
yeah.
whole.
So I invite you for the next one
Please,
if you are
yes,
for
yeah,
ready for the next step.
yeah, yeah,
Just Nina, quick about your funding round at the
yes.
moment, because you're raising at the moment in euros 1 million.
Oh, now, look, I'm
In
not
pounds
I'm
800
not
k.
the numbers founder.
How much are you raising
It's
in pounds?
£1 million. Yeah,
A
million
million
pounds.
pounds. Okay.
We
Yeah.
are about 75% committed.
Yeah. Well done.
Of that, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
People have,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's taken some
No, of
grit
course,
to
but
get
it's
there.
I mean you're already really far with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where we are, and a valuation of 6.5.
Yeah. And do you have any specific needs for kind of investors that you would like to add to this round? What kind of investors are already there in the
So
committed part?
we have an early stage VC on board. We have Zinc, who've supported us with this round. We have an SPV with lots of angels. We have
Okay.
several large angel syndicates,
Okay.
including Syndicate Room, they approach you, you don't approach them, which was a real lovely piece of validation from us. And we'd love a VC. We'd love a VC check. We'd love a
Yeah.
VC who's going to take us to the next stage. We'd love a VC who's looking, or an angel who has US connections and can help us with that commercialization
Yeah.
piece. We are always welcoming people who have a medical device background. Lots of our key angels have a femtech background or a health background, just to help
Yeah.
us, and who understand the space. I think
Yeah.
if you're in commercial, if you're in luxury goods, this isn't
Yeah.
going to
It's
make a lot of sense
something
to you
totally
in terms
different.
of the
Yeah.
projections. Yeah. Someone
Makes
who's
sense.
comfortable with medtech, because it does take a little bit longer. We move
Yeah.
super fast, but our big
Yeah.
vision for this is going to be over the next 10 years. And we're both
Yeah.
very here for it.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for that, Nina. Thank you
No problem.
for sharing your story. Very interesting, very inspiring. So yeah, for everyone listening at the moment and want to know more about Peripear, you can go to your website. I assume.
Yes. Yeah.
You and for investors that are listening, you can reach out to Nina. You can reach
Yeah.
out to us at adventureplatform.com as well, and we can connect you as well. So thank you for that, Nina. My name is Laura Lauwelancé. This was Adventure DealFlow, and I see you at the next great deal.